This video will serve as the ending part to lesson 1.4, where we're continuing on looking at equivalent ratios and different ways to compare them. Please make sure that if you are in class, that your headphones are plugged in, that you're listening, that you're actively paying attention and taking notes, because I'm going to go over and explain everything in detail, step by step, on what you need to do to understand this lesson. And once again, our I can statement, our objective for this lesson is to be able to say that I can compare relationships, ratio relationships, in three different ways. Once again, we can write a ratio in words and are in ratio form. We can find equivalent ratios on a ratio table, or we can even graph them and figure out a ratio relationship that way. We left off then talking about this particular question where we figured out that Aisha is the one that had the highest amount. Once again, we were given the ratios in the particular word problem. Notice I have each one blocked in a different color. And then we set them up according to the tables. Now, I agree this was a lot of work to get to the fact that Aisha had the highest number overall. We had those three steps where we're going to create our equivalent ratio tables. Then we're going to find the least common denominator by doing our multiplication facts, our multiples, by 2, by 3, by 4, by 5, by 6 on this one. And then we were going to identify, once we figured out what the least common multiple was, which is the 60 denominator, we look at the top number of the numerator, and we can see that 48 is the largest. So now we're going to get into some different approaches, and hopefully you'll see that this is easier if you'll follow these steps instead of having to create all of those different math problems for our ratio tables. Now, we can see that we have three friends, and notice that we have Marcus, Cassidy, and then notice this name. The first time in my 27 years of teaching, my name has appeared in materials that I teach with. It's a unique name, but it makes me kind of happy that it's actually being used by someone. Going back to the problem then. So as we see this, then we have to look at the information that's being given, right? So what is the task that I'm being asked to do? Well, that is to look at everyone creating their own favorite color of purple and see that they're going to use 6 quarts of red. Every person, all three people, are going to use 6 quarts of red. And then I have to use their ratio relationship and make sure I make equivalent ratios if they have 6 quarts of red and have the proper amount of blue. So then it's asking what paint mixture will have the most blue. Is it going to be Marcus, Cassidy, or Hiram? So how am I going to go about doing this then? Right? So I need to stop and think the things I have learned, not only in the past few lessons, but also in previous years, and apply it to the math problem. So if I start looking at this and I know that in red, which happens to be the top number, is 6, then all I really need to focus on is making that top number 6 and figure out what I'm multiplying by. So if I know 6 has to be the answer, and then I'm multiplying the top number by something to get the 6, then from the note in the very first lesson, whatever I multiply one number by in my fraction, I have to multiply the other number by it. If I was going from larger to smaller, and I would be dividing, if I divide one of the numbers in a fraction by something, then I have to divide the other number by the exact same thing. So if I know that I'm going to come up with 6, then I'm looking for an individual that has the highest ratio in the blue, who has the biggest number. Well, first we have to start by finding our top number of 6. So I'm asking myself, well, what am I multiplying 2 by to get 6? Well, that'd be multiplying by 3, because 3 times 2 is indeed 6. So then I have to do the same thing to the bottom number. So I have 3 times 3, and 3 times 3 is 9. Then I'm going to go over to Cassidy, and I have a 3 at the top, so I know I need to get a 6. So I'm going to multiply it by 2, because 2 times 3 is 6. And if I multiply the top number for Cassidy by 2, I have to multiply the bottom number by 2. And 2 times 4 gives me 8. And then Hiram has 2 to 2, and I know that I need that top number once again to be 6, so I'm going to multiply 3 by 2 to get 6, and therefore multiplying the 3 by 2 at the bottom is also going to be equal to 6. Now that all of the red top numbers are 6, then all I have to do is look at the bottom number and figure out which one's bigger. The one that's bigger is Marcus. So Marcus is the answer that we're looking for because we're looking for whose paint mixture will have the most blue. So now on this particular question, I'm going to show you a way that will work all the time with the equivalent ratios. I don't need to do the tables. I don't need to do all the math problems. I still have to show my work, and I still have to have a logical answer. But on questions on your homework, like question 2, it's going to give you all of these multiplication tables that you need to fill in, but you really don't need to if you follow this process. It's really much easier if you just pay attention and take your notes. So let me show you what we're talking about. So we do have these 3 companies. We have brand A, brand B, brand C, talking about cereal, talking about how many cups of flakes they have, and then how many berries are in those cups. And we need to figure out which company advertises for the greatest ratio. Now, I'm going to show you once again a newer process so we can figure out which company it is. So instead of going through and creating our equivalent ratios tables and things like that, let's just look at the ratios that we're given, right? So brand A has a ratio of 1 to 5, brand B has a ratio of 2 to 6, brand C has a ratio of 3 to 12. So I'm going to find the least common multiple for those bottom numbers. And my first step is I'm going to locate my largest denominator. So notice that I have a 12, I also have a 6 and a 5. So 12 is obviously the largest denominator. So being sure that we write down these notes because you're going to be able to use this on your homework, then I look at 12 and I want to start with my multiples of 12. Multiples of 12, least common multiple, right, means I need to multiply. So generally, I'm going to find my first 4 or 5 multiples. So let's find the first 5. The first one's already done, right? We don't have to put that 12 times 1 is 12. It's already there for us, but you can put the times 1 up above the number if you want to. But then we are going to show that we're multiplying by 2, multiplying by 3, multiplying by 4, multiplying by 5. Once again, please be writing this down in your book because these are going to be a great example for you. Then I'm going to use my handy dandy calculator and I'm going to do those multiplication problems. So I have 12 times 2. Well, 12 times 2 is 24. And 12 times 3 is 36. And 12 times 4 is 48. And 12 times 5 is 60. So now that I have that, now I'm going to use the numbers and I'm going to check them to the other denominators. So if the other two denominators will go into evenly, the number that we found as a multiple of 12 will be a multiple of 5 or will be a multiple of 6, then I can keep it until I have the smallest one that all 3 will go into. Once again, we've already done the biggest one. Those are all multiples of 12. So if it's a yes, then I'm going to keep it, and then I'm going to stick with the smallest one. If it's a no, then I don't need to keep it because it's not going to work, period, for any of the 3 if it doesn't work for one of them. So I'm going to now focus in on the 5 and the 6. So we're going to start with 5s. So I'm hoping that you know that when it comes to the divisibility rules of 5s, that in order for 5 to be able to go into it, the number must end with 0 or 5. So we're going to go through and we're going to see if 5 will go into the 12, 24, 36, 48, and 60. If it's a yes, I can keep it. And if it's a no, then I can't keep it. So will 12 go in? So starting with the 5, I want to ask, will 5 go into 12? No, it won't. Will 5 go into 24? No, it won't. Will 5 go into 36? No, it won't. Will 5 go into 48? Nope, not that one either. Will 5 go into 60? It does end with a 0 or a 5, so yeah, 60 will work for 5. We know it worked for 12, so that's a good possibility that that's going to be our least common multiple. So now I'm going to check my 6s. Will 6 go into 12? Yes. Can I keep it though? No, because 5 doesn't go into 12. Does 6 go into 24? Yes. Can I keep it? No, because 5 didn't go into 24. 6 will go into 36, but 5 didn't go into it. And 6 will go into 48, but 5 didn't go into it. 6 will go into 60, so I know that I can keep it. So that's a yes from 12, 6, and 5. So my least common multiple is indeed 60. So if I know that my least common multiple is 60, now we're going to do our multiplying top and bottom by the same number to where I get equivalent ratios. So if I need a bottom number of 60 and I have a 5, then I have to ask myself, what am I multiplying 5 by to get 60? If you don't know, then you use your handy dandy calculator and you type in 60 divided by 5 equals, and that'll tell you that you can multiply it by 12. So if I multiply the bottom number by 12 to get 60, then I have to multiply the top number by 12, and 12 times 1 is 12. Now I'm going to do the same thing with the 6. What am I multiplying 6 by to get 60? Well, if you don't know what you're multiplying it by, then type in 60 divided by 6 equals, and that's going to give you 10. So if I multiply the bottom by 10 to get 60, then I have to multiply the top by 10, and 10 times 2 is 20. Then I go with 2 to the 12. I know it has to be equal to 60. If I do 60 divided by 12 equals, then that tells me I can multiply by 5. And if I multiply the bottom by 5, I multiply the top by 5. And 5 times 3 is 15. Now that I have that bottom number all the same, I'm just looking for the biggest top number. And the biggest number out of 12, 20, and 15 is 20. So my answer isn't 20. It's not 20 cups of flakes or anything like that. It is which company, and that would be brand B. That's my answer. So that is a perfect example of how you can do most of your problems, including question 2, where they have all of those ratio tables. You don't need to fill that out. So go ahead and work on this assignment. You have 5 questions. Please ask questions if you have them. Let me help you. Let Mrs. Bloss help you. Ms. Sanders help you. We're here to help you. But your assignment is due at the beginning of the next class.